Well, good morning or good afternoon, I guess, depending on where you're located. This is Tom Robbins. I'm with Kentico, and I want to thank everyone for joining me today on our webinar on Introduction to UI Personalization with Kentico CMS 7. This webinar is really the outgrowth of a couple of things. One of the things is we've been getting kind of a fair amount of questions around how to look at personalization and some of the basics around personalization. So I figured I would try to put together a quick webinar to show people some of the fundamentals around it. So we're really going to focus today on looking at the basics of UI personalization. We're going to then dive into kind of the pieces that are needed around that. So this includes what are the system management options, some of the ideas around creating your own custom UI elements, and we'll take a look at how you can actually do that. And then we'll actually provide a quick wrap-up. Our session today is going to be about 30 to 40 minutes. We're trying to make our webinars a little bit more quick-hitting and try to provide a little bit more, information, and be more targeted around what kind of information we're providing. So with that, let's go ahead and hop into some of the fundamentals of UI personalization. So if we take a step back and we look at why we actually want to do UI personalization, what is really the point of it? I think it's important to understand that, everyone here hopefully has used Kentico, and it's a really rich system. It's got lots of features, lots of functionality, lots of things that you can do. The problem is that it can be a bit overwhelming. So people who come into, CMS desk for the first time tend to be very overwhelmed, because there's a lot of things. And the reality is not everyone needs every menu item, and not everyone needs to have everything that's there. It also may make sense to move things around depending on your business process. The goal of UI personalization is to create simplified interfaces, and this really is designed to go ahead and decrease the learning curve. So people getting into CMS desk for the first time, aren't looking at a lot of features that they may not actually need to do their job. They only are really looking for the essential business features. So we often see it, and as I talk to partners and customers, we see it used over and over again to kind of declutter the interface and provide people with, the 5 or the 6 or the 7 key things that they need in order to get their job done. So while you're not actually removing feature functionality, what you're doing is you're making the interface very easy for people to be able to see it as to be able to get that information that they need. So UI personalization is really designed to decrease the learning curve that we often see, as well as to provide a very simple user interface that people will need in order to get their job done. The fundamentals of UI personalization shouldn't be new for people that have been using Kentico for a while. What we introduced UI personalization, I think it was back in version 5, we went ahead and did some refactoring of the application. And the terms here aren't new. I do want to kind of point out, though, that UI personalization is for CMS desk only. At this point, excuse me, when we're talking about it, that we really are only talking about CMS desk. There are a couple of key terms. Obviously, by definition, we have a set of modules, which the Kentico CMS interface consists of, and these elements underneath that contain UI elements. And these elements can consist of things like tabs, menu items, groups of controls, and are what is often hidden from users. The screenshot that you can see here basically represents an example of a customized CMS desk. Obviously, for the modules, we've gone ahead and hidden things, across the top, like the e-commerce and the online marketing, as well as we're going to take a look at this. You can see there's things like tabs and menu items that are actually missing. Whether a UI element is really shown or hidden is based on the idea of role security, and this is kind of important to keep in mind. So it's a combination of setting the security attributes and then being able to set within that who's going to see what and how that's actually going to be seen. So how does this actually work? And that's kind of the big thing that I think people always want to keep in mind. At runtime, a composite is created of all the roles a user belongs to, and this is actually called a UI profile. If at least one role the user belongs to makes the element visible, it's actually displayed. So as an example, we could take a look at the picture that we can see actually how this works. The user that you're seeing here is a member of role 1 and role 2, as you can see. For role 1, in module 1, they have access to UI elements 1 and UI element 2. So if you look at the slide here, you can see that we've got a green arrow to UI element 1 and a green arrow to UI element 2. Both UI element 3 and 4 have actually been denied to that user. And then for module 2, we have access to UI element 1. Then if we look at role 2, we can see they have access to UI element 1 and UI element 3, and then for module 2, they don't have access, they have no access. So at runtime, their UI profile provides an interface that's going to go ahead and display module 1, UI elements 1, 2, and 3, because remember it's a composite of what we see in role 1 and role 2. And then in module 2, they're going to get access to UI element 1, which comes off of role 1. So the benefit and why this is important is that also that UI profiles are site related. That means that a user is able to see a personalized UI when they're editing one site and a completely different UI when editing another site, which makes it kind of nice as I'm building out multiple sites and maybe moving through different sites. And this is really because a UI profile is dependent on roles, and roles are site related. So users can be a member of any number of roles across all sites in the system. So the UI profile becomes incredibly important as you're starting to set that up and actually provide information for what you're trying to do for your end user. So let's take a quick example and look at what this is actually going to look like. All right, so let's take a look here. Let me go ahead and get out of my slides, and let's go ahead and get into our corporate site. So just so you know, I'm running the sample corporate site in the areas that we're looking at here. I haven't actually customized anything. So if you go ahead and you have a corporate site, you can actually follow along with what I'm showing here. So let's start with logging into CMS Desk as administrator. And I want to point out a couple of things, and I'm sure if you've used Kentico, there's nothing new. So I'm in as global administrator, which you can see here. You'll notice that I've got kind of my 5 tabs across the top. I've got kind of all of the things in the content tree. Just so you can see, if I go into my properties on a page, I've got kind of all of the property pieces that are here as well. What ships with the sample corporate site is a gentleman by the name of Andy Jones, who's member of a role that we actually want to take a look at. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that is. So we have a user here that we're going to look at, and the user is Andy. And if we take a look at Andy and we take a look at his role here, you'll notice that Andy's a member of the CMS Basic Users role. So if we close that out and then we go ahead and we look at the CMS Basic User role, you'll notice a couple of things, right? Obviously, Andy is a member of it. There are no memberships. Some of the permissions, you can see he's got permissions across various areas that he can go ahead and take advantage of. He's also got UI personalization. So for example, within here, if we select the module CMS desk, you'll notice that Andy only has, or excuse me, CMS basic users, which Andy is a member of, only has content, my desk, and tools as something that he can see on his main interface. Let's actually take a look at what this means. So if I go ahead and I'm going to sign out here, and I'm going to go ahead and log back into CMS desk, except I'm going to log in as Andy. You'll notice immediately a couple of things. One is, as we showed, I only have access to the content, the My Desk, and the tools, which is a pretty big difference from what we saw, but you can see how that's actually set up. The other is, and we didn't actually take a look at this, but if I were to go into our community here, and we're going to take a look in blogs, and I'm going to create a new blog entry, you'll notice that within our WYSIWYG editor, then Andy has got a severely restricted UI menu, which I think makes a lot of sense because often people don't need access to source, right? If you're not familiar with HTML, that could be a little bit overwhelming, and a lot of the other features may not make sense. So Andy has a pretty limited set of things that he can do within the WYSIWYG editor, which really helps him get his blog post done and allows him to work within a specific area. You'll also notice that if we hop over to My Desk, we've got some differences here. You'll notice that if we hop over to Tools, that he's got a pretty restricted set of menus, so he's got only access to polls and newsletter, and there's a lot of other things that are actually missing within that. Also, if we hop over to our content and we select our properties, you'll notice that there's a variety of options that are missing here, and these are just not necessary for what Andy needs to do, and that's something that becomes incredibly important as Andy starts building out, his content and kind of doing his daily job. So as you can see, Andy is a great example, and I definitely recommend if you're looking at someone to model or to study a little bit further, take a look at Andy, and you can see kind of how the CMS desk can be customized, as I just showed you, as well as things like the WYSIWYG menu and some of the others. So now that we've taken a quick look at what the difference is, let's look at how we can, how UI personalization is enabled, and then how we can actually build that out. So let me go ahead and log out of here, and we will go ahead and bring our PowerPoint back up. So system management options. Enabling UI personalization. So by default, when the sample corporate site is actually shipped, it is important to understand, as I said, that Andy, which is included, has UI personalization. So this is actually set. If you're building out a site from scratch, you're probably going to want to make sure that you go ahead and set this particular option. And you can find this within Site Manager Settings, Security, and then if you look at the Administration tab or the Administration panel, you can see Enable UI Personalization. And this gives you the ability to either enable it globally, as you can see using the site moniker up on the left, so I could do it for all of my sites, or I can go ahead and set it per site. And it is completely conceivable to have this set up per site. So making sure that you have this set is an important first step in making sure that you're going ahead and being able to have UI personalization available for your end users. Next, I think it's important to understand what can I customize. I think, as I said earlier, UI personalization is applied to the CMS desk. Site Manager doesn't provide any personalization at this time. Really, typically, it's used by administrators and developers who need the full UI. Within CMS Desk, personalization you can make available for UI elements that I've listed here, and this creates, honestly, a ton of possible combinations that are available. The four main tabs in CMS Desk you can go ahead and hide. The Content tab offers a ton of possibility. You can hide any of the main tabs and edit mode. On the Design tab, you can customize pretty much all of the editing actions, and within the Web Parts Properties dialog, you can hide their tabs as well. For the Properties tab, you can control the visibility of most of the UI elements, including things like your general, your URL, your templates, your metadata, your menu, and your security pages. For things like My Desk, you can hide the menus and all of the tabs. On your profile page. For the Tools and Administration tab, you can hide all of your menu items. As I said earlier, and you probably figured out, one of my favorites is hiding the action buttons on the WYSIWYG editor. And I often find this helps users quite a bit, especially users who don't understand HTML, or they just don't need to ever embed videos or anything like that. You can also, within the media dialog, when it's displayed, you can use the insert image or insert links into the WYSIWYG, and the editable image web part allows you to go ahead and hide the dialog tags. As you can see, and I've just kind of covered a bunch here, there's tons of possibilities, especially when you add in, given that you can create your own elements. And really kind of keeping in mind that we have a limited time today, there's a lot of additional information and examples that you could follow up that are available within our documentation. And definitely take a minute or two to go ahead to DevNet and take a look at the developer documentation that has some great additional examples that you can pull from here. So now that we've kind of looked at the basics, let's take a look at how we can make some of these things happen. Fundamentally, there are two key menu items that are used when working with UI personalization. First is the module screen, which you're using to define your available UI elements. And let's take a look at that. So let's go ahead and log into our Site Manager. And we're going to select our Development tab, and we're going to look at Modules. And if you notice, we'll go ahead and we'll just pick a module like CMS Desk. And you'll notice kind of a couple of things. You can define a set of permissions. This is where you define your user interface elements. And it shouldn't be any surprise that you have things like Content, My Desk, Tools. These are the things that you've actually seen. And then as you select these, you could see kind of the standard things, right? We've got our display name, our parent element, we've got our caption, we've got our target URL, and then we've got the size. And the size really has to do with how the icon appears within the ribbon menu. Let's go ahead and pick another one that might be just as interesting. So let's go ahead and select our content here. And you'll see that within our content we have a variety of permissions, which should make sense to people that have looked at content. The idea of being able to browse the tree if you want to read or modify what's actually in the tree. You've also got your user interface here. So within your content, so you can see there's things like page, wireframe, design, and then underneath the design you can see that we've got additional layouts that are specified. So it shouldn't be a surprise, right? Web zone properties, general variant properties, and you can kind of drill through all of the different pages that are there, and you can see kind of all of the different features that you can set up. And I forgot to mention it before, but you can also identify which sites these are available with. And obviously what I'm showing you here is included with Kentico, so you definitely don't want to go ahead and restrict things from site to site, but it kind of gives you the idea. And as you can see, kind of the modules list is pretty extensive of all the things that you can do, and all of the settings that you can do. So as we talked about, here's media dialog. We can look at our user interface. We can see things like our attachment tab, and we can define kind of a set of roles that are attached to it, as well as our media library tab that you can see here. So we looked a little bit at modules. So next is the idea of the second menu item that you want to be available with is really modules. And this is where you're going to set permissions on those elements. And that's kind of the important piece to keep in mind. So let's go ahead and hop back into development, and we're going to look at modules here. Oops, sorry about that. Yeah, we just took a look at modules, and we're going to go ahead. We'll go ahead and continue on. No reason to show that again. So the last thing that we want to look at is the idea of, let's go ahead and open this up here. A little off on my PowerPoint skills today. There we go. Let's take a look at adding new UI elements. This is kind of the last piece that we want to look at. Let's go ahead and all right. So as we want to go ahead and add new UI elements, and I think as we saw a couple of minutes ago, we want to go ahead and add these via our Site Manager development and then our module screen. And then within the screen, we can then go ahead and select our new UI element, and then we can go ahead and enter the following information. I think this is kind of important to understand, especially as you're building out your own UIs. So for example, your display name, which is really just the name of the element displayed in the administration interface. And you can either enter this as plain text, or you can go ahead and enter it as a localizable string if you're doing string localization. Your code name, which is your unique module. Your element is custom, which is important. So when this isn't selected, the element is considered a native part of the Kentico CMS environment. For anything that you're adding, you want to go ahead and make sure to set the value of your custom UI elements. Caption is really the display name that you want to go ahead and show. And also you'll notice that you can make this localizable as well. Your target URL, which is the URL of the page, and you have two choices here. This can be an absolute, so for example, http www.kentico.com, or you can go ahead and set relative, as you saw, which is / CMS modules if you want to pull in a page that exists within the current project. And your icon path is really for menu items that are going to be displayed next to the element caption, and then you can either use a full or a relative path here as well. And then last, as I said earlier, is just this idea of the size. And typically, this is going to be used only for things that are going to appear in the ribbon bar, which is something that you want to go ahead and show kind of how big or how small. So typically, for what we're doing today, that's not as important. Let's go ahead and just take a quick look at how we can create a new UI element so that we can see how it's done. So let's go ahead and go back into Site Manager here. And we're going to go back into our developers modules. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a new tab into CMS Desk. And in this example, we're going to create a new tab in CMS Desk, which will display the Kentico.com website, because quite honestly, everyone should have the Kentico.com website displayed in CMS Desk. Of course, I'm kidding, but it's meant to be an example. And I absolutely would expect that people will go ahead and create their own things or point to either different things on their intranet or different things that they would like to see. So now that I've selected our module, we're going to go ahead and edit our module, and I'm going to switch to the user interface. And within the user interface, you can see that we've got our 6 tabs here, which shouldn't be surprising. I mean, it's kind of the standard that we've seen, for however long, Kentico's been around. I'm going to create a new element that's actually going to sit underneath this. And I'm going to enter the display name of Kentico, and you'll notice that the code name gets set. I do want to point out that the element is custom, is automatically checked, and we want to make sure that's checked. And then for our caption, I want to say go to Kentico. And then for our target URL, I'm going to do www.kentico.com. And then once again, I don't really care about the icon path because I'm not building a menu item here. And of course, I can enter the description, and I don't necessarily care about the size because it's not going to appear in the ribbon bar. So let's go ahead and click Save. And you'll notice that I've actually got now 6 items. And I'm going to flip over to CMS Desk. And you'll notice that within CMS Desk, I've now got to go to Kentico at the top. Oops. And I must have made a typo here. So let's hop back over to Development, Modules, CMS Desk, and User Interface. And here, oh, I made a typo. Sorry about that. www.kentico.com. Then we hit Save. Now that we've saved it, we can go back over. And there we go. So once you enter correctly, it actually does show up. So really what we've done is we've taken CMS Desk, which is really the main interface that our marketers and people are working with, and we've customized it. We've made it easier for people to go ahead and add new things. So while all I did was create an interface to a web page, there's a lot of possibilities. Maybe you have other applications within your enterprise that you want to go ahead and pull that you want to start showing within CMS Desk, or you want to do things as simple as customizing the WYSIWYG editor. So those are the kinds of things that you can do. All right. So as we go ahead and we look to wrap this up, a couple of things to keep in mind. One is UI personalization is a great opportunity to provide real value back to your users. So this gives you the idea of being able to access and control the user experience in a positive way, being able to cut down on things that they may not need, also making it so that they can get stuff done easier, so that they're not as overwhelming. The biggest thing that you want to kind of keep in mind is that you do want to understand what your user needs. And what I mean by that is, making sure that before you start personalizing the interface, what is it that the user needs to do. I mean, what things should he have, what things shouldn't he have, and then being able to control it. Otherwise, it can be kind of confusing if you're removing stuff that I actually need in order to do my job. So last thing is that I want to go ahead and thank everyone, and if you have any questions, feel free to send in your questions. We'll go ahead and answer it. We did get some questions around, will this be recorded? Yes. Assuming we don't have any kind of technical issues, we'll go ahead and post this up. We're trying a couple of new things based on some feedback. I'm going to try to post this up on YouTube and provide links to kind of the different sections that go through. And you'll notice that we're also we'll also be able to provide better information, hopefully, with the YouTube links. But please go ahead and feel free to send in information. If you're looking for great marketing content, I did want to make a quick plug for Digital Marketing University, which is a site that Kentico is working with, that we're looking to engage with marketers out there and provide some great information on the marketing front. And also, as always, if you have any questions or if you have any additional topics that you'd like to see in this new format, please don't hesitate and send me an email at thomasr@kentico.com. So once again, if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and send them in. And I'm going to go ahead and try to answer those, and we're going to let people go. So if you have any questions, feel free to send them in. Okay. Question is, how will I obtain a link to the webinar? So when we post up the video, I will make a blog post at my blog on DevNet that you'll be able to see, and that will point to it. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. So with that, I'm going to let everyone go, and if you have any questions, and also feel free to shoot me an email if you'd like to see any additional topics. Thank you, and everyone have a great rest of your day or great rest of your evening. Take care.